The great actors in the Kurukshetra battle were the descendants of Bharadwaja. We find much diversity of spiritual characteristics among them. The material and spiritual forces were gathered together in all possible grades, from the Pandavas downward to the sons of Dhritarashtra and their allies. The poetical genius of the author of the Mahabharata has called forth characters in the drama of the Kurukshetra battle that stand out in all the details of real life and find a permanent place in the genealogy of the Luna dynasty. The study of the racial account of the line of Bharadwaja becomes, therefore, extremely difficult. The Luna dynasty will be revived by Devapi, a descendant of Bharadwaja who is biding his time at Kalapa. The early inhabitants of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa were the sons of Anu, the second son of Sharmista. The famous Kama, one of the heroes of Kurukshetra, also belonged to this line. The eldest son of Sharmista by Yayati was Druhyu. Prachetas of this line had 100 sons who inhabited the north as Mlecha races. But the greatest interest attaches to the line of Yadu, the eldest son of Yayati by Devyani. The early descendants of this line were the Haihayas killed by Parashurama and the Talajanghas killed by Sagar, both of the Sola dynasty. The Mahabharata has given an importance to the overthrow of these early Yadu classes as a victory of Brahmanas over the Kshatriyas. Next to the Brahmanas in intelligence were the Kshatriyas. They eagerly accepted the teachings of Rama, who incarnated as one of them. They knew Ishvara as higher than the Devas and the Brahmanas. They thought they could profitably employ their time in seeking after the knowledge of Brahman. This necessarily offended the orthodox Brahmanas who performed the Vedic sacrifices and had no higher ambition than to resort to Devaloka. The Kshatriyas thus represented a religious evolution of which the Upanishads were an outcome. In time, some Brahmanas even became disciples of Kshatriyas. Both Rama and Krishna incarnated themselves as Kshatriyas. We are to understand that by Kshatriyas during this period of Puranic history is meant seceders from Vedic Karma Kanda more or less. The early seceders, the Haihayas and Talajangas, were put down by the Brahmana Parashurama and by the Kshatriya king Sagar, who espoused the cause of Vedic Karmakanda and of the Brahmanas represented by Rishi Aurva of this time. Parashurama did not like any meddling with Vedic Karmakanda by persons not perfected in wisdom. Even Rama had to respect the Vedic rishis and had to protect them in the performance of Vedic sacrifices from the attacks of Asuras and Rakshasas. When Lord Krishna appeared on the scene, the Asuras still survived. The Vedic rishis denied offerings to him. Vedic karma had a strong supporter in Jarasandha. There was hypocrisy in the name of religion, and there were pretensions in various forms. On the other hand, great improvements had been made in the proper understanding of the realities of life and of the laws of nature. Intellect overflowed in many channels of thought, and the religious nature of man found vent in all directions, from atheism to religious devotion. Leaving this general resume, we may now enter upon a closer study of the history of religious movements in our present Manvantara, so that we may understand the great work done by Lord Sri Krishna. The races live as individuals live. However developed an individual may be, when he is reborn after death, he first becomes a child as any other child. There is much of spiritual life in the child, and sometimes pictures of heavenly life are presented to his spiritual vision, which are denied to the grown up man. The child begins his life when he is grown up, and then his individual characteristics soon manifest themselves. We do not read much of the man in the child. Hence, the history of the early spiritual races who were infants in the racial life does not teach us anything. We find some of them had communion with the devas of Svargaloka, but that is more on account of their infant spirituality than anything else. When the races developed in time, they became most intellectual as well as most material at the same time. Manvantara after Manvantara was taken up in developing the psychological, physiological activities, the sense, Indriya activities, pranic activities, and then the lower mental activities of the jivas. The personal man was fully developed in the sixth Manvantara, and the great churning only opened the door for another line of development. The possibility of spiritual activity was secured to men by Kurma. When the races of the sixth Manvantara therefore became reborn in the seventh Manvantara, they were the most intellectual of all races, but they had also the power given to them of developing spiritual faculties. They could not, however, shake off the Asuric element all at once. They were extremely fond of material joys, and they devised all means which human intellect could contrive of gratifying material desires. That was right which gave material gratification, that was wrong which mutilated or militated against material enjoyment. Bhuvarloka is the plane of animal desires. The human beasts go after death to Bhuvarloka. They do not possess anything which could take them to Svargaloka. The Svargaloka is for those who develop in themselves the faculty of discriminating between right and wrong and who do or attempt to do what is right. Far more it is for those who love others and who do good to them, for service and love pertain to planes higher even than Svarga. But in the higher planes, service is unselfish and love is divine. The lower forms of service and love pertain to the plane of Svarga. In Svarga, there is selfishness, but it is mixed with spirituality. It is only the good, the virtuous, the devoted that go to the plane of the Devas and there gratify their higher desires to their heart's content. There are divine music, divine beauty, divine objects of gratification in Svargaloka, allurements enough for a man of desire. And if his merits be great, he enjoys the things of Svargaloka for an enormously long period. But a man by bare intellectuality cannot cross the threshold of Svarga. The Devas reject the intruder. However, much Trishanku might aspire to have the enjoyments of Svarga, and however great his intellect might be, he was not allowed to enter the coveted plane without the passport of spirituality. Humanity had still to learn the proper means of securing life in Svarga. Poor and chance spiritual acquisitions give only a passing life in Svarga, and that not of a superior character. So, all the knowledge as to attaining Svarga life had to be revealed in time. The rishis made great efforts to improve humanity by securing for them a prolonged existence in Svarga. Most of all, Rishi Vishwamitra, one of the seven sages of our Manvantara. Vishwamitra failed in his attempt to send Trishanku through Svarga. He then tried with his son Harishchandra. It is said he advised the Raja to make a human sacrifice to Varuna, but we find the victim Suna Sefa living after the sacrifice under the name of Devarata, or one given up to the gods, and some of the riks even were revealed to him. Harishchandra succeeded in entering Svarga. That was a great victory for Rishi Vishwamitra. The Vedas were revealed to the rishis and sacrifices came to be known. Narada also helped the cause in another way. He related the beauty and virtues of King Pururava to the Devas in Svarga. Urvashi, the famous Deva nymph, hearing all that, became enamored of the king. She had then, by the curse of some god, a human form, so she could keep company with the king. The king was enchanted by her beauty. When she left, he followed her advice and pleased the Gandharvas. The Gandharvas gave him the fire with which the king could perform sacrifice. The fire became threefold. With one, he could perform his activities to the Devas and go to Svargaloka. With another, he could perform his duties to the Pitris. With the third fire, he could perform the duties of a householder. Thus, sacrifices meant duties, and it is by the performance of duties that men can perform Vedic sacrifices and go to Svargaloka.